Today we're going to be looking at the Sorcerer build that I use from level 1 all the way up until I'm technically still using it here at level 87, but I'm currently planning on changing. But you can take this up to 100 if you want, but this guide is specifically for the 1 to 50 and then 50 to 80 range. Things are going to change around a little bit around level 50, which we'll go over, but for the most part it stays fairly consistent. Pretty much we're just going to be dropping a basic skill once we're a little bit later on in the game. But this is going to be perfect for leveling up because pretty much everybody and their mother is running Domhainne Tunnels to level up, and this is going to be one of your quickest ways of doing so, just because of there is so much AoE. You're just going to be walking through the enemies and they're all going to be dying behind you as you're going through. If you do your combos right, you can actually put out pretty good single target damage as well if you stack up enough of your burns. But let's go ahead and start taking a look at this build. Since this build is a 1 to 50 but also 50 to 80, there are going to be some moving parts once you hit 50, but I do have my leveling path here, so if you guys are still working your way up, you can follow this along. But the skill tree that you're seeing on the right here is going to be basically our finished skill tree. There's going to be some points that you can move around, completely flexible, but let's go ahead and jump into it. So starting off, we're going to be grabbing Arc Lash. This is the best leveling skill for the Sorcerer. It does really good damage, gives you cooldowns with the Glinting Arc Lash, and then also it obviously costs no mana since it's a basic skill, so you can always use it. There's nothing really to worry about with your sustain, so that's why you're going to be investing heavily into it. And then we're going to be grabbing Frost Nova and Mystical Frost Nova once we get down there. If you have your Renown, you're going to get these right out of the gate. Then we're going to grab our other two defensive skills, Teleport and Ice Armor, and then maxing out Arc Lash here. We're going to be starting into Glass Cannon, but then you're going to be hitting level 15. And from there, we're going to be getting our first enchantment, which is going to be Fireball. It's going to really help out your clear speeds because any enemy you or your party kills will explode. And Domhainne Tunnels is just full of trash ads, so it's really going to help you guys move a lot quicker. Then finally, max out Glass Cannon. From there, we're going to be down into Firewall, and we're going to be maxing that out. On here, I accidentally selected Wizard's Firewall. Don't do Wizards, do Mages, so they continue burning after leaving Firewall. So ignore that one, do Mages. And then we're going to be grabbing Enhanced Ice Armor so we can get to that mana regen. So if you balance this with your ult, you can always have mana for your firewalls. But if you run out, you can always use Arc Lash. That's why we are invested into it. But that will bring us down to our ults. So we're going to be grabbing Inferno and Supreme Inferno. And then finally maxing out our last point into Firewall. From there, we can do Fiery Surge and Endless Pyre. And then we can grab our ending teleports if you guys want to be using them more often so you can move quicker and also get to that 30% DR, which is always helpful. Then we can grab Combustion, Inner Flames, and Crippling Flames. And then we can grab some Align the Elements over here. And then I personally like to max out Protection first. It helps protect you against dots. The barrier is just really good. You're going to be using cooldowns all the time, so I really do enjoy doing this. Eventually, we'll max out Align the Elements, but first I like to just get Protection. Then from there, we can get our last little bit of damage for the most part, and that is Hoarfrost. So you deal increased damage to chilled or frozen enemies. So when you guys are using Frost Nova, but also something we're about to switch to, will be active a lot more often with the Hoarfrost here. And then we can grab some Inner Flames and another point into Align the Elements. But at this point, you guys are going to be level 50, and this is where we're going to start changing things around. So we're actually going to be investing out of Arc Lash and going into Frozen Orb over here. So Frozen Orb is going to be another source of vulnerable for us because we're going to be using this as an enchantment. So we have that chance of sending one out anytime we cast a skill. And it's just really, really nice. And also, like I said, with Hoarfrost, it's going to be applying that chill and you guys can get that extra damage to them. So that's why we're going to be grabbing Greater Frozen Orb here. But you can also invest out of Fireball and keep moving down into Hydra. So all the points that you're going to be taking out, you can now go into Hydra and get that going. So we're not going to be using Arc Lash anymore. You can replace your Arc Lash on your skill bar with Hydra and be throwing these around to help you deal a lot more burn damage, which is very, very helpful. And then that's where I grab the rest of Align the Elements and Mana Shield. And that's basically it. Here I did fix my skill tree with the Firewall. I accidentally, like I said, selected Wizards. Always be doing Mages so you can continue that burn damage even when they're not standing in it. But now let's go ahead and take a look at like our enchantments, aspects, and all of that good stuff. So this is what my hotbar looks like and mostly my aspects. So A lot of these aspects are going to be codex, but the main ones that I used in terms of codex aspects would be prodigies. So you can get that using a cooldown, restores mana. This is really good. I highly recommend going and getting this from Witchwater. And then also aspect to control from the Sunken Library. These are pretty much the only two that I used up until 50. It's completely free to put them on essentially, and you don't really need anything else. If you happen to find other codex items or like Storm Swell, you can throw that on, but these are the two most important. The other ones we're going to be adding on post level 50. And then also our vampire powers we'll get to here in a second, but I did just want to mention for the enchantments, like I said, Fireball out of the gate, and then once you hit 30 for your second one, I do Firewall and I keep that one on. And then once we're level 50 and we get out of Fireball, that's where we go into the Frozen Orb and also get rid of our Arc Lash and put our Hydras here. So this will be your level 50 skill bar in enchantments. But now let's go ahead and take a peek at the vampiric powers because that is one of the most important things this season. So one of the first ones you guys are going to try to look for is the Hemomancy here. The enemies it hurts actually really helps out with your clear speeds, but that's not even the main thing. Even if it's not doing any damage, it's going to heal you 1% of your max life for each enemy damaged this way, which is essentially going to keep you at full health. It's going to make running through the Domhainne Tunnels absolutely mindless. You're never going to die. So this is why it's one of the most important powers for us. And then obviously flowing veins, we're all about damage over time here. So if they're moving or affected by that vampiric curse, you're going to deal a lot more damage over time to them. And then I have anticipation, so we can use our ultimate more often. Also, it's going to help out our damage over time effects. And then I have feed the coven, so we can get our hydras getting more primary resource for us. So that's a big reason why we're swapping over to the hydras. And then I have Coven's Fang on right now, so I can get a vampiric curse more often, and also my hydras can apply more burn damage. But the vampiric curse on like single targets is really going to help out, especially if you stun them or anything like that, because they won't be moving anymore for flowing veins. So it is nice to have that ideal application of vampiric curse. If you guys don't want that, you can also use the one domination where you deal the increased damage to the crowd control. Basically another aspect of control for you, but you guys can decide on that one. Now, in terms of post level 50 aspects, disobedience is always really good. I have aspect of might when I had arc lash, but you can change this out for frost bliss once you find that, so you can get that extra charge of frost nova. Conceited for the extra damage while you have a barrier. Almost always gonna have a barrier. I have snow veiled for the ice armor, gives you unstoppable. It's nice just to have another source of that other than teleport. And then Ghost Walker is very helpful because anytime we teleport or use that ice armor when we have snow veiled, you're going to be able to get that increased movement speed and move freely through enemies. So it's going to make just walking through, because essentially what you're doing with this build is putting firewalls in front of you and just walking. Anything that follows you is just going to burn. So it's really helpful to be able to move through them. And then aspect of the elements is really nice. You can get that rotating damage bonus for your fire damage. And then engulfing flames is another big one. Once you happen to find this, I throw this on my amulet so we can deal that increased burning damage to enemies below 50% of their life. And then we obviously went over prodigies and control already. Those stay on. And then for the final one, you can either use Storm Swell if you want more damage, or if you want more applications of vulnerable and chill, you can use the aspect of Frozen Orbit. So the Frozen Orb stays in place and explodes a few more times. So you can take your pick. I'm currently running Frozen Orbit, so keep that in mind, but you can pick either of those two. And then for the passives on your gear, I didn't want to put like too many, just some key ones for each piece that you guys are going to be looking for. So like helmet, cooldown, ranks of Hydra. The big thing that you're going to want to be looking for on your chest and your rings is just straight fire damage, because of our Paragon board that we're going to be investing into. We're going to be getting a lot of non-physical damage. So if you have these, those are going to get boosted up a lot higher. So it's very helpful. Otherwise, fire damage over time. Ranks to your defensive skills on your boots are helpful. Pants, obviously, ranks of firewall. Your weapons, damage to burning, damage over time. And then on our offhands, cooldowns, resource gen is all good stuff. But other than that, just look for defensive things on your armor or other offensive aspects, or affixes that fit a lot of your uptime with this build. But yeah, that's pretty much all of that stuff. And let's go over the Paragon board that I'm currently using in game. My current Paragon board is pretty scuffed with the ordering of things. I wasn't really exactly sure how I wanted to go about it, so I am going to have to respec this later on, but I just wanted to show you guys like the glyphs that I'm working on and also some key areas that I focused on. So right now I currently have the Adept glyph for the extra area for the firewall. It actually has been very helpful since I equipped this. Obviously it's going to boost its damage too, but I haven't leveled this up at all. It is still very much level 1. And then otherwise the big board for me, so if you guys make it out of your starting board and you're going into your first one here, the first thing you want to do is get the Enchant Master, just because of all the non-physical damage in this board. So if I could, I would just swap this over here, but I haven't done that yet. There's also more non-physical damage here, and also with the Elementalist glyph. If you guys level this thing up to 15, you can now encapsulate all of these, and you're going to get a lot more non-physical damage out of that as well. And obviously dealing fire, cold, or lightning damage is going to give you 5% X per, so you can always have that at 15% too if you guys are using your teleports. And it is just going to be very helpful to have this early on. So if I could go back, I would just go and do that. But otherwise, the non-physical damage with the fire damage affixes on your gear is really going to help you out. And then otherwise, I grabbed the Searing Heat. Don't worry about this early on until you have a lot of like bonus damage with fire, so you can get it capped out. Otherwise, the 10%, 11% that you're going to have out of the gate is really not worth it for how far you have to go. But in this tree, I also have the Unleash node here and grabbing just like more fire damage. And then I also grabbed the Tactician just because we're using defensive skills all the time. It's a free 10% X there. And you can also boost some of these damage reduction from burning, damage to burning, that type of stuff here in the Burning Instinct board. But like I said, this is going to have to do a big rework for me, and that will be in the updated build here for the 80 to 100 range. But I just want to show you guys currently what I've been running and the glyphs that I'm using. Just super quick, I want to go over my current gear too, just so you guys could see. So this is my helmet, the Ranks of Hydra and cooldown, the chest piece, max life, fire damage, armor, and some resistance. I have my gloves, fire damage over time, and also I just have some ranks to Frozen Orb, so you can deal a little bit more damage with those since we're sending them out so much. And then on my pants, firewall and some damage reduction, some poison resistance type stuff. On the boots, ranks of teleport and frost nova for their cooldowns and a little bit of movement speed. On my weapon, I just have int, damage over time, damage to crowd control, damage to burning, all that good stuff. On the amulets, I actually got a really good one from the vendor. So I have 3 to Hoarfrost, 3 to Mastery for my firewall, 3 defensive for the cooldowns, and I rolled fire damage over time on there, which is pretty dang nice. And then on the Serpentine ring here, I have fire damage, damage over time, damage to burning are all helpful. Also, you guys can run the extra Hydra and have it increase its duration. So that's another aspect you can be using with all of your gear. If you want to get rid of like the aspect to control, it's completely up to you on how you want to be running that. Otherwise, here on the ring, I do still have the Codex Prodigies, but here fire damage, damage to burning can get a little bit better with the crit chance, and distant aren't really helpful too often. And then the focus that I'm using, I just have like lucky hit, chance to slow, restore primary resource, resource gen, all of that good stuff. But this can be a lot better. And with this setup, which is still obviously mega scuffed with that Paragon board and a lot of this gear, I'm still running like mid 50s nightmares without really any issue. Occasionally, you know, like you'll die to a modifier on an elite or something stupid like that. But for the most part, I'm doing like mid 50s here at like mid 80s. So not too bad. The enemies are like 15, 20 levels higher than me, which is pretty good in my book for a scuffed build. So yeah, it does end up working out pretty well for more than just leveling and base Domhainne Tunnels. So if you guys did enjoy the build video, make sure you leave a thumbs up on it to let me know. Also consider subscribing for more Sorcerer builds and other Diablo 4 builds here coming very, very shortly. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you in the next video. See ya.